North Shore Children's Hospital. And then that's Massachusetts. And then I went to McLean for a while, McLean inpatient. Then I moved back here. I went to Brown County for 10 years. Then I did all kinds of other community mental stuff. And then I went back to school, became a nurse practitioner in 2010. And then I started at Promea. And then I got smart, but that took me 5 years to get smarter. And I came to Belden. And that's been the best place I've ever actually worked with mental health nursing, to be true. And when I first started my first contract, I had time allotted for project time, so I did a lot of these. And then COVID started and it shut it all down. So I haven't done one in years, and I was surprised to get invited back to do another one. And in the meantime, I've put in my resignation because I'm retiring. Okay, in September, right? So, making 38 years of psychiatric nursing. Yeah, I'm done. So this is probably my last one. So we'll do this and shout out questions. I'll take advice on my bracket. You know, if any of you are really good at basketball, I'll take any advice. I generally just start it and hope I win. So after all the snow and gloom, and it's actually like sleeting out there right now, which is awful and gray, this might be the right time to do this presentation, right? Because now I think you're sufficiently sick of winter. And some of you don't care, and I honestly don't care. There are some people that the weather just doesn't bother them at all, and I'm actually one of those people. I can find a million things to do inside the house. Obviously, I'm built for comfort, not for speed. Inside the house is kind of where I function at my peak, and so weather doesn't ever bother me, right? So, but if you're one of those nice, like, exercise outdoorsy people, it probably drives you nuts that the weather's so bad here. And so, for you, we want to reduce your stress during this time, right? Everybody wants to try to do that. And you can have a lot of stress just from work, honestly, that just some contributing thing like the weather just makes it worse, you know? Like normally in the summer you'd be fine, and then you're saying to yourself, oh, it's gonna snow again, and I can't deal with it. So this is the Middle English, it's the origin of the word, right? So you can see that it's from the old French question in Latin, drawn tight, right? Middle English, just very much distressful. And of course, even with your patients, you're going to try to work to reduce stress or help them reduce stress themselves, because there's very little you can do personally to help someone relieve their stress except to give supportive therapy and give them lots of ideas on what they can do. And that's what I'm going to do today. And then hopefully you can take some of this away and use it with your patients too. So one thing you might notice when you're working with your coworkers who are stressed out, that they sigh a lot. Have you ever noticed that with your coworkers? Like they're standing at the med cart, they're like, you know, like, ugh. Yep, another day in the inpatient ward. I mean, it's tough, right? Depending on what's going on, I've been there. I did primarily inpatient psychiatric nursing most of my life. So you do get sore in your shoulders, tension in your back, you know, you have more aches and pains. It's all about stress, really. I mean, not always. You might have arthritis if you're old like me, right? But if you're young, like most of you out there, probably stress related. You notice that you're forgetful, you're just not as sharp as you normally are, and that's annoying, and you get headaches, and you have a hard time sleeping, and sometimes you'll have some GI. Now, some people with really high anxiety will have diarrhea, and that is because serotonin is stored in your gut. So when your body is trying to pull serotonin out to calm you down, and if there's nothing in storage, because you've used it all up, because you've been through a lot of stress, yeah, you're going to have diarrhea. And sometimes, if you're a very anxious person, you'll use everything you make every day. So that's when an SSRI comes in handy, because it'll help and kind of force your body to store it. So when you do have system, and it's the calming neurotransmitter when you don't have enough. This is a lot of times where you'll feel it, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting. Hopefully not vomiting, because that's awful. So this is just like a quick slide to show, if you allow that kind of stress to go untreated for long periods of time, you're going to be prone to more illness, disease. Relationship issues can be impaired by stress, but they can also cause stress. Self-image issues, low self-esteem, and then of course your quality of life is less if you have any of those combination of things. So the number one thing to do first of all is to identify it, right? I mean, who can't stop looking at that cute baby over there? I mean, really. Everybody wants to be that baby with the perfect little feet that haven't had any wear and tear on them at all. So school is a huge stressor, of course, because nobody can put the pressure on like teachers. The constant expectations, you always feel like there's something you should be doing, should be reading, should be writing, you never get a break. So school is awful. And then work, of course, is just a fast-paced environment, lots of difficult patients, demands from administration, they want you to work more hours than you really have time for and stuff like that. So, and then of course home-related stressors, with relationship issues. Even caring for a beautiful little baby is so stressful because sometimes a beautiful little baby cries and you don't know why. It's like, why are you crying? I changed your diaper, I fed you. And then financial stressors are really big for depression. And I think it's still the number one reason why people get divorced is financial stressors. So the financial stressors feed into the home-related stressors. What you want to do is try to identify your stressors so that you can then, work on them. Because if you don't know why you feel the way you feel, you don't know where to start. You just feel lousy. You don't know why. So really try to identify it by writing things down, making lists, and then, looking at your past in an objective way, if you can. That's hard to do. But a therapist can really help you do that well. A therapist can really objectively help you look at all your stressors and identify what it really is that's bothering you. And come to some good concrete solutions for, helping you feel better. So therapy is always a really good idea. So it's just supposed to be funny. A bottle of wine with a straw in it. I've heard, don't do that, right? Because alcohol by itself extracts serotonin from your system. Just by itself, it does that. There are only two substances that can cross your stomach lining and go directly into your bloodstream, and that's alcohol and aspirin. So alcohol has a very unique way of getting into your body very quickly and sucking serotonin from your system. And so immediately, if you're drinking, you're going to feel more anxious, more depressed, especially for 3 days after, while your body is trying to replace what we lost. So I always tell kids in college, if you have a test on Monday, do not binge drink through the weekend at parties, because Monday you're going to be at an all-time low of your relaxing serotonin. And so you're going to be highly anxious during that exam. So if you want to binge drink, for college students, be aware of that and be careful. If for all of us that are just working stiffs, try just to limit it. Try not to drink. It's no good for you. It's toxic to every single cell in your body. So practicing self-care, you want to, try to create a more positive attitude towards things and not look at the negative, and build better coping skills, build a good social support network, see your friends and family that you like, family that you don't like, don't see them during the winter, except Christmas, you're forced. But other than that, you just put a moratorium on that. My mental health isn't good enough today to see you. We'll wait till summer. summer, and we'll have a big event or something. So build self-esteem by controlling your stressors. Don't feel guilty if you say no, right? So if you really feel like you can't spend time with certain people because they bring you down, don't. Say no, it's okay. You can see them later when you're feeling better. So that's why I say be responsible to yourself first, because you can't help anyone else if you are feeling very down and anxious yourself. So obviously the first picture is try not to drink too much. Try to limit your working hours, and that includes school hours. You know, do your best to manage that in some kind of reasonable amount of time, because I know a lot of people take on extra shifts because you're trying to save money, which makes sense, but if those extra shifts are making you more stressed and anxious, it's not worth it. And then eat well, because you want to build up your serotonin, right? And serotonin needs lots of nutrients from vegetables of every single color and good quality protein. So don't binge on carbs. I mean, that's the food you go to when you feel down. You're like, I need mashed potatoes, you know, or mac and cheese or something. That's like the worst thing you can actually eat when you don't feel good. You know, try to eat a big salad full of all kinds of colored veggies, maybe some seeds and nuts. Try to eat good quality proteins like fish, right? Or some lean meats. I mean, I live on a farm. I eat beef. I'm not anti anything really, but just keep it in mind if you're not feeling well, you might want to modify your diet. And then keep moving, even though it's winter. You know, like in winter, you kind of want to have your fireplace going and sit in the chair. And that does feel really good, you know, for a while, but then over time, you start to feel worse. So you want to at least get some daily walking in, move all four of your limbs. It really helps your neurotransmitters, helps your brain. It really infuses your brain with more blood, and the blood is where all the good healthy stuff is for your brain, so you really want good perfusion of your tissue in your brain. And then of course try to sleep enough. Hopefully you can do that naturally without medicine. I know a lot of people need medicine, but sometimes medicine doesn't give you a natural sleep state. It's kind of like a hypnotic. It'll knock you out, but it doesn't really provide that refreshing, like restorative sleep. I know that's so easy for me to say, but believe me, I'm not a sleeper. So I know it's hard, and I understand if you do need something, you do. That's just how it is. And then of course, again, the realistic work hours, but balance that with some play hours. People you love, things you love to do. Try to do that even in the winter. You know, it's kind of hard to find a winter activity sometimes, but you know, reintroduce yourself to bowling. It's not that bad. It helped people in the Midwest for years get through winter. And you know what? It fell by the wayside, but I really feel like these kinds of things can really be helpful. And then of course, exercise helps you feel more calm. Anything you can do to ramp up your serotonin, that's what you want to do. And of course, mindfulness. So I don't know, you guys probably know about this because you may be preaching this stuff to your patients all the time anyway. And I am too. And I know you know, Carla, because you guys are like the kings of mindfulness in that program. And I believe in it. Like, I started doing transcendental meditation in 1976. Okay, that's the old meditation where you go, Okay, nowadays, you don't have to talk anyone into that, right? Because now mindfulness is just full of, you know, sitting quietly, feeling your breath, and, you know, trying to empty your brain of stressful thoughts, and feeling your seat and your feet on the floor, and, you know, just trying to get that. And if anyone needs a good app for that, that's got mostly free content, I use an Insight Timer app, because at no time does it start wanting to charge you for stuff. Some of the other mindfulness apps, they give you some free content, but then they're like, okay, now we need your credit card number, you know. So Insight Timer is the name of that app, and it's really good, and you can teach it to your patients too. and they could download it for free and use it as well. And the great thing about it is you can pick the number of minutes you have available for mindfulness training. So if you only have 5 minutes, you can pick a 5-minute one, you know, which is great. Insight timer.
Thank you.
Right, it's a weird name, but it is all about the timer. So if you have 5 minutes, you have 10 minutes, you have 30 minutes, you can pick whatever you want. And so that's a great app. Another thing I do think keeps people more calm is to try to stay organized. I know that seems silly, but if you're very unorganized and you have a lot of things in your living space, your workspace, it can really make you feel like you just can't get it together. And especially if you have a little bit of ADHD, whether treated or untreated, any kind of that discombobulation, you know, can really stress you out a lot more than what you maybe think it is doing. I think some people think that makes the place seem cozy, but actually it puts a lot of stress on your brain to look around and see so many objects, right? So I feel like if you could try to, I mean, I don't believe in the minimalism thing that's kind of popular now where people just get rid of everything. I mean, if you believe in that, that's great, but like I'm not like that. I have a huge collection of books, so I'm not getting rid of those. But other things, you know, if you look around your little space and it's like too much stuff, try to just clean it up, organize it, put it in little containers, and just so that everything is kind of streamlined when you're looking at things. It really does help your brain function a little bit better. And then of course, like I said before, say no. People want you to work another shift. People want you to babysit, except your baby. I'm not talking about that baby. We'll all babysit that baby. But you know, people want you to watch their dog or whatever. You know, people are always like trying to get you to do things, right? Say no. You know, stick up for yourself. Be brave about it. So spend time with people you love, that I already said. Don't spend time with people you don't love, that's even more important. Try to laugh every day at something because humans are funny. Humankind is funny. You guys are funny, you guys made me laugh just walking in here. You all sat in the back. Okay, it's funny to me. You know, so find the little things that make you laugh and try to, you know, I mean, there's so many, you know, if you really look around. And also, not just give other people positive affirmations, although I do believe in that, give yourself some too, because you get through every day in a psych ward, you deserve a lot of positive affirmations for that. Because there's not a lot of people who can do it. I mean, I know the nurses, I praise them, they went through COVID in the big hospital, and that was probably grueling and awful, and I know, because I saw some of them. But to decide you're gonna spend your life working in mental health, yeah, you deserve a few positive affirmations. That is hard. Okay, so now you've done everything good. You're eating, you're exercising, you've got all the stressful people out of your life, you've streamlined your environment, you're doing meditation every single day. You're avoiding all the bad people, right? All the negative people, that bad medicine, and you still feel lousy? Okay, you need therapy. You gotta start with therapy, because therapy in every single clinical trial where medication had to compete head-to-head against therapy for depression and anxiety, therapy won every time. Therapy is the better treatment for depression and anxiety. Medication, in some studies, only worked on about 30% of the symptoms. In other studies, it worked on about 50%. But never did it work better than 50. 50 was the best we ever got with medication. So if you're going in for the meds, and they're never going to work perfect, right? They can't. They just don't. And you have high expectations for what they can do for you. You're going to be let down. And then we're going to go back to the beginning of this whole PowerPoint, right? Because you're going to be depressed again, anxious, and going, why is this not working? Because they don't. They only help with up to 50% of the symptoms and that's it. That other 50%, you gotta get yourself with all that other stuff. And if all that other stuff doesn't work, you have to add therapy. And you gotta work hard in therapy, even though it's hard work and it takes time. And that's always the part, like with my patients, they don't wanna do it. I don't find it helpful. They got a lot of reasons, you know. I know it's hard. It's hard to go in and talk to you about yourself. It's very difficult to do that. The only people that cry in my office, and they cry in my office every day, are the people who are talking about themselves. As soon as they start to talk about themselves, they cry. It's very, very normal. They feel super awkward. They're grabbing the tissue. I'm sorry, I'm crying. I'm like, everybody cries in here. Because no one talks about themselves in a sincere way. And so if you can go with someone where you feel comfortable, really telling the truth about your life, that's going to be really hard. But in the end, the benefits are huge. So therapy, number one, and you tell your patients that too, because I get sick of being the only one. And they come in and they always want a med change. Guess what? It's not going to work. You know, if we've already got several things on board and they've gotten some relief from the symptoms, the chances of them getting a little more, highly unlikely. So I hate to fill people with false promises, but that's kind of what you end up doing when you do what I do. You know, you're like, okay, well, let's add Wellbutrin. Even though in my head I'm like, this probably isn't going to work, you know. But I also want to fill people with hope. I don't want them to ever leave my office feeling hopeless. So I will do that, even though in my brain I'm like, I don't know if that's going to do anything. But let's say you've done all of that and you've got a therapist, you're working very hard in therapy, and you're still feeling that nagging low, you know, the anhedonia. I don't like the things I used to like. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to take a shower. I definitely don't want to go to work. Then you probably do have to add a little medication. Because at that point, you've done everything you could do. And if it's still like that sluggish, low mood state, or that horrible anxiety where you just don't feel comfortable in your own skin at all, and you just kind of always feel like that, yeah, medicine can help that. So in that case, executive team meeting in 5 minutes. So anyway, in that case, medicine can help, but then you should probably see someone like me and try to add something or change something. Or you can also start with your primary doctor, because in primary care they do a lot of prescribing for mental health. So if you can't get in with us, which is hard because we have a huge waiting list, you can start with your regular doctor. They do all the standard stuff too. And they'll definitely get something started at least, unless you go to certain doctors, which I won't name, but they won't even throw down a sertraline, lane, so I don't know what their deal is, but like, come on, okay, you know, try something. Anyway, yeah, that was faster than I thought, because sometimes I talk very fast. Do you have any questions about anything? Do you have any medication questions? For sure, like, that's my thing, but I've done so many medication trainings, and they're all on tape. I just thought to myself, who wants to hear that stuff anymore? You want to talk about your bracket? We got time. Do you have any questions about the differences between antidepressants? Or anything at all? No? Anybody want to be a nurse practitioner? You want to ask me about that?
Maybe you said it before, but do you primarily work with older population or children, adolescents, or?
I started out with kids. Right? Because I worked at McLean, I only worked with kids. And then at Brown County, I started out kids unit. And so when I started doing this, I started with kids and adults, but parents are nearly impossible to work with. And after a few years of working with these parents, I was like, I am over this. I am only going to see adults from now on. So, yeah. So then I do 18 and up now. For a while, I was like, okay, I'll do 12 and up, but then I couldn't do it. You gotta know your personal limitations, you know? And that was mine. The parents are so bad. They're so bad. I mean, sometimes, you know, the kid comes in, it's not the kid at all, it's the parents. And you can't do anything about that. You're just screwed. You know, you can't say anything negative to the kid's parents. You can make suggestions in a very nice way that they won't hear at all. But I couldn't do it. One of my really good friends is a child psychiatrist. He's 2 years older than me and he's did it his whole life. I don't know how he did that. I've asked him, you know. But yeah, I don't know how he did it. It's just so hard. It's big and easier if you're a man who was born in late 50s. You know, I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't care. You know, maybe he's just like, try that. See you next time.
Yes.
But for me, that kind of stuff bothers me a lot. Like when I see that in my room or something, I'm just like, oh God, I can't take this anymore. So, yeah. I think you just have to be kind of cool to deal with it. Yeah.
So I have a question. We see a lot of people that can't sleep. Is there like, what's your go-to med, or what's your go-to thing that, have you found anything that's been relatively successful?
No. So let me tell you something. I went, because everyone has a sleep disorder. I went to a huge sleep conference with the leading sleep specialists in the country one time, many years ago. Because I had that same question. What is the answer to this? And they started talking about how they bring people to their huge expensive clinic in Chicago, and they take everyone off their caffeine, and they do all this crazy stuff with their diet, and they take them off a bunch of their psych meds, and then after they were done with all these things that they do, they looked at us and they said, we know what you're all thinking. You're like, where's the meds, right? What do you do for meds? We don't use meds. I was like, well, this is a waste of my time. Because can you imagine trying to tell every patient that comes in your office, no more caffeine. This is what they do in Chicago. No caffeine, zero caffeine. In your diet, zero. They said even small amounts of caffeine in the morning ruin people's sleep later in the day. They also take a lot of the simple carbohydrates out of people's diets, like sugar and simple carbs, flours, pasta. I was like, oh, that's gonna go great in Green Bay, Wisconsin. No alcohol. Like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. And then, obviously exercise and all the healthy stuff. And they do all of that stuff ad nauseum with these people, and they say they have a 95% success rate in getting people to sleep with no medication. So I just left there despondent. You know, like I left there like, this is a total waste of time and money. I'm not going back to Green Bay and telling people that they can't drink beer or coffee in the morning. Like, really? Because I couldn't tell myself that. So, I don't know. I've tried a lot of things. Everyone's got a little minor differences in what they do. But it's pretty minor because the basket of pills you can use for sleep is a small little basket. So you only have a certain number of options, you know, trazodone and Seroquel, the atypical antipsychotics. People usually go with Seroquel because it's very sedating. Trazodone, this old antidepressant medication that we used to use in the old days, Brown County, it works. No one's depressed, but they're also not awake. So they're all just like, right? So we stopped using that as soon as Prozac came out. But small doses of that is so sedating that we'll use that for sleep. And then you've got your hypnotic sleepers, Ambien, Lunesta, Sonata. But, you know, they're hypnotics. If you take that and you don't get in the bed, like let's say, oh, I'm just gonna go on my computer quick and look at a couple things. And then guess what, a week later, there's boxes showing up at your door because you bought a bunch of stuff you didn't know, right? You didn't know, you were actually awake, but you didn't realize it. now everything you bought is coming to your house. Like, this happens to my patients all the time. Not all the time, but enough that I have this story. And, you know, or maybe you're a celebrity and you tweet out something that's outrageous, and then, you know, you lose your entire career. I mean, I did believe Roseanne Barr when she said she was on Ambien. I was like, I believe it. I've heard these stories from my patients so many times that this stuff is crazy. And then, you know, sometimes we try the old guard, you know, the tricyclic antidepressants. They're very sedating as well. So, like Doxepin, that's sort of one. And the thing I hate to do is go to the benzos, like temazepam, clonazepam, and all those, because the PAMs and the LAMs cause memory loss over time. You don't want to ruin someone's life doing this for a living. I mean, that's just not my goal. I want people to have a good, long life with good memory. Because developing dementia early, because someone prescribed you clonazepam for sleep when you were in your 30s, is awful. I mean, there's no excuse for that, right? And a lot of patients don't even know that. And I've had so many of them come in, I've been on that for 20 years, and I'm just like, 20? Because the clinical trials are pretty clear. If you're taking it daily for longer than 5 years, you have some long-term risk that isn't gonna go away by stopping it. So, yeah, I would prefer not to ruin somebody's life, right? So the options are so bad. I mean, sometimes you can combine like trazodone with a hypnotic if you have someone that really doesn't sleep. That's, I don't know, I kind of hate to do that too. But I do it. I mean, at some point you get desperate, right? They keep calling. And then you start trying to do some combination stuff and just see if you can figure something out. But yeah, it's really, I don't even know if people are really meant to sleep that well. I kind of think that all these people telling you need the 8 hours and all that, sometimes I wonder, is that true for everyone? Because I don't think I've ever slept 8 hours, and I'm okay. I think maybe it's an individual thing, you know, like runs in families. Some families don't sleep. Let it go. Just let it go. Just get up and get going. You know? And just see what happens. You know, you'll be tired, you'll probably drink more coffee, which the Chicago group will frown on you for doing that. But it's really a tough one, the sleep thing. I mean, when people with schizophrenia, for instance, sometimes it really is the meds that are keeping them awake. And that's really bad. But they need those, you know. It's a balancing thing. You can't have auditory hallucinations and then, you know, well, we're going to reduce your olanzapine because you can't sleep. Well, some people sleep really well on olanzapine. Other people, it's kind of activating. And when they don't sleep as well. Anything else? Yeah, call her out.
How much does culture plays on people's stress and sleep?
How much does what?
Culture.
Oh, culture.
Yeah, for example, I've traveled around the world. I was in the military and lived in other countries. When they hear that I'm from the United States, the first things I hear is that, oh, the land of the laws and the land of medicine. How much do we play on to mental health with that culture? Because when I was growing up in the Philippines, we adopted the Spanish siesta. We took a nap, even back in grade school, where we took a nap for like an hour, nap time for everybody.
Yeah.
But I hated naps.
You hated them.
But I love them now.
You like them now.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it really just regenerates me. Like I love the PM shift because I can take a nap during the day shift.
Yeah.
I hate day shift because it's the mentality of getting up.
Yeah.
So, as I said, I always loved the PM shift just because I can take naps during the day. But then I was thinking about that and say, that's how I grew up actually. I hated it when I was little because I thought I was missing a lot of things. But now I love it because I can take a nap during the day. And it regenerates me. So how much is culture really playing on that?
I think a lot.
Because when I was in Turkey, I had the same conversation with a whole group of guys drinking beer, and here's a serviceman listening to them and saying, why do you guys do this? Why do you guys do that? Why do you guys do this? And that's a good question, 'cause I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, I think it's a lot. I think Big Pharma has shaped us over the last 20 years in a major way. They are insidious in the way they advertise and market to us now on TV. It's allowed. It's allowed on the internet. Like, there's no restrictions to what they can tell you now about medication. There was a time they couldn't do that. And I think they slowly do change the way people in America think about medicine. I can tell you, because I'm old, that there was a time in history, and not that long ago, where people did not, pills were not the first thing they were looking for. Okay, like that would be the last thing they'd go for, is medication. Nowadays, and especially younger people, they really believe with their hearts that medicine will help them. And, if you have high blood pressure, it will. But if you have depression and anxiety, chances are it won't. So it's really hard. I mean, I can't fight against that in my office, because Big Pharma is so powerful that they just are true believers. And there's no way I could really say to them, I like the clinical trial data, it's clear. They don't really work that well. And the side effects are icky. They make you feel kind of flat, they ruin your sex life, they have some like crappy side effects that you really don't want to live with that, what's worse? But I do think, so some of my favorite psychiatrists are from the Philippines. Believe it or not, I got 3 favorite psychiatrists, they're all from the Philippines. They're super conservative prescribers. I love that about them. They don't believe in it either. They're like, listen, we have to tell people honestly what these things can do and what they can't do. Because otherwise they keep getting more and more pills. They keep going in and asking, now I have these symptoms, now I have those symptoms. Hey, some of those symptoms are from that pill you're taking. Well, okay, we'll give you another one to offset that one, and it just becomes this horrible thing. It's very hard to fight against it in the United States. Very difficult. But even in the UK, where I follow a bunch of psychiatrists in the UK on Reddit and Twitter, and they have a much more conservative approach. And in fact, when I try to get people off of benzodiazepines, I use the UK chart for that. Because in the UK, they are just adamant people should not take benzodiazepines. And so they have this whole great tapering system that they use to get people off, and that's the one I follow. But I think culturally it's true, because in some cultures they have more of a laid-back culture with fewer expectations about what you should achieve in a lifetime. So for instance, I used to live in Mexico, and this was in the 80s. And in the 80s in Mexico, everyone did take a siesta. Everyone took a nap. They worked early in the morning. They ate lunch. They took a nap until about 3, and then they worked from 3 to 7. Because the day was so hot in the middle of the day, they just did that. Culturally, they did that. And I just think that that's a much more relaxed environment. And you generally, when you're living there, you can feel it. It's tangible. You just feel more relaxed. You don't have to meditate as often. You're like, oh, okay, now we're just gonna take a nap? You mean we're not gonna run all day and pick up a second shift? Crazy.
And in our culture, in Western culture, there's so many rewards. People are coveted if they work more, they do more and more and more. And I'm Italian American. My mom, I've been to Italy, and my mom was 100% Sicilian. And Italians think that's crazy. They think we're idiots. They take the breaks in the middle of the day. When it's hot, sometimes they'll close a shop for a month. They'll work later, they'll eat later, and they're happy in general. I mean, it's
they take less medicine than we do for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one more thing, then I'll shut my mouth.
No.
Matters of the heart. That's part of, in Italian culture, that's part of being human. If you ask an Italian, and if anybody's been in Europe, you ask how are you doing, they're going to tell you.
Yeah.
Whereas here, we won't look at each other. Well, I'm fine. That kind of thing. But I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
Being honest. You mentioned something kind of initially about being honest about things.
Yeah, right.
I think
I
that's
try to be myself in my office because I think being myself allows certain types of people, depending on their personality, to feel comfortable also talking openly.
Absolutely.
Now, some people hate me. I mean, I'm a very like 50-50, like you can look at my reviews. My reviews are not great. You know, I'm like, I'm a love me or hate me provider. And you know, like cable, right? Like the two of us. Like some people hate us, some people love us. I actually love him. But I'm just saying, Brian Cagle, we're the same. We got like very sketchy reviews, you know, because some people don't like this going on, right? They want more of that doctorly kind of professional, I would call it, approach.
Persona.
Yeah, when you come in and you're very polite to them and you
go,
know,
"Oh."
yeah, and you know, and you keep your mouth shut, right? Well, that's not me. And so, yeah, so you know, a lot of people just immediately are repulsed. Like, no, I'm not going back to her. She's nuts. And then some people are like, oh my gosh, you're so refreshing. I feel like I can finally talk to someone. Okay, so that's what I get. I get the people who love me, and then the rest of them I'll just kind of like wander off to a different provider, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm full. Every day I'm full. I've never had one opening in my schedule ever. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I do feel like if people could just feel comfortable, because I hope they realize I'm not judging them, you know? Because I'm not perfect.
None of us are.
I'm not judging anyone. So I hope they feel that, but sometimes I just think they want something other than me, which is cool. I don't care. But yeah, but thank God we're not Japan, you know? Like, you know, they work even longer hours, more hours in China. Like those people are very oppressed mentally. I think the saddest thing I saw on TV, I saw a couple of, do any of you guys watch the new, okay, it used to be called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but they have a new show and it has a different name. Do you know what it is? I don't know, it's like 5 guys that help people with their fashion and different things.
Oh, you're thinking of the Real Housewife guys.
Those 5 guys, you know what I'm talking about?
Still
5
Queer
gay
Eye?
guys.
Queer
Eye
Eye.
for the Straight Guy.
Yeah.
Well, they have a season that's just in Japan, okay? That is the saddest thing I've ever seen on TV. Oh my God, those Japanese people are so oppressed and sad that watching that, I even cried a couple times for them. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? They can't be like, did you see it? No. Okay, now everyone go watch it. It is so sad. They are so like repressed mentally and emotionally, and oh my God, it was heartbreaking. I'm surprised they put that on Netflix. It was sad, very sad. It is. Watch it, then report back.
Okay.
I'll be here till September 28th is my last day, so I'll expect
Okay, I got some time.
some Skype messaging from this group. You can find me on Skype, I'm on there. And you can report your reviews of this Japanese season of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. It's very sad. I was very happy that I didn't live in Japan after I watched that, because that was heartbreaking. And of course, it's just a teeny little example. It's probably not even, I don't know. I took it to heart. I took it to heart. Anything else? Anybody gonna be a psych meeting? No? You wanna know about school? No?
Yeah.
I'd like to hook a couple of my family members up with you.
Sorry.
My practice is closed. I'm on the way out.
Sorry. Couldn't help
Too
it.
late. Yeah, I don't know. They're gonna be fighting over my office when I leave. Yeah, somebody will be in there. You can send them. You can send them. Someone will see them, but it won't be me. I might be bartending somewhere if you want to come and find me there. Because even though alcohol is a toxin and I don't advise anyone to drink it, bartending is fun.
Okay, thank you, so much.
Yeah, this has been great.